In New Hampshire, Republican voters came out in droves to support the president. Even though he did not have a strong primary challenger, the president got nearly more than twice the turnout, of President Barack Obama in 2012. The president got more turnout than incumbents going back to George H.W. So is a red wave coming this election? Could the Republicans now take back the House and hold the White House? Watch this.
9 months from now, we are going to take back the House of Representatives. We are going to hold the Senate, and we are going to keep the White House. We have so much more enthusiasm than that's not even close. They're all fighting each other. While the extreme left has been wasting America's time with this vile hoax, we've been killing terrorists, creating jobs, raising wages, enacting fair trade deals, securing our borders, and lifting up citizens of every race, color, religion, and creed.
Let's bring in my next guest, National Taxpayers Union Senior Fellow Mattie Duppler. Mattie, your reaction, wow, this is a really fluid story. It's changing by the hour. I mean, if you see what's happening, I don't think the Democrats expected it to be this dire.
Well, you heard the president say it. He talked about enthusiasm, and that's really what voters have headed into November. And that's because the economy is doing so well. Think about it. The last several presidential election cycles, we have had candidates telling the American people, this is how I'm going to make it better for you. Trump now gets to tell American voters, things feel pretty good for you. This is how I'm going to keep the momentum going. So certainly the wind is at his back. And the contrast, I think, is so strong here. If you look at what's happening in New Hampshire, in Iowa, you've got Democrats talking about what they want to do that essentially would unwind a lot of the economic victories that have happened over the course of the Trump administration. Whereas the president, when he goes out on the campaign trail, he's telling you exactly what he's going to do once he gets elected for a second term. He's talking tax cuts 2.0, continued regulatory relief, another phase in the U.S.-China trade deal. I mean, those are things that Americans have reason to feel very good about because right now their economic circumstances feel so strong and they feel buoyed by that as they head into November.
Let's show the data, the president's accomplishments. They're vast and sundry. They include a solid economy, also a boost for the middle class. We found a number that matters importantly to the president when it comes to manufacturing jobs, also to labor unions. The AFL-CIO has talked about it. It's how much the U.S. is making, manufacturing, and selling to China. America's good. It's called the goods trade deficit. It's an historic number. In other words, $74 billion. That's a good trades deficit with China. This is the biggest drop ever in what China is selling into the U.S. and the U.S. is selling back into China. The U.S. is selling more into China than ever before. This was largely ignored, Mattie, last week, but it's a whopper. It's a big turnaround.
And that was a stated goal of the president since day one when he's talked about taking on China and U.S.-China trading relationships. Now, we still have a long run until the election in November. Things could certainly change. Voter sentiment could certainly sour. What I would be looking for is that June-July time frame. That's when voters' opinions start to crystallize about the economy headed into an election. And we have every indication to believe that the economy will just get stronger from here on in. I mean, last week we got astounding jobs number from the Labor Department telling us that the economy added 225,000 new jobs. That was unexpected and surprise to the upside. And I think we'll continue to see that kind of growth. And those are the types of numbers that Americans pay attention to. During the recession, one of the most interesting components of the recession was that, the Beltway insiders were trying to tell the rest of the United States that the economy had recovered, while most Americans in the rest of the country were looking at their communities saying that they hadn't gotten a pay raise in 10 years, and most of their neighbors, if they had a job, couldn't leave that job for better conditions. Now, Americans are looking around them thinking that their fortunes have changed. Workers are the ones who are able to make the demands on their employers, and their wages are rising as a result of that. And that's when you really see Americans start to feel the economy rather than just think about the economy. That will be so important for the president as we head to November.
Listen, in 1992, the Democrats early on didn't really have a candidate against George H.W. Then Bill Clinton was pushed to the forefront, and he became the candidate. Same in 2008. The fight between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton lasted well into the summer of that election, and then Barack Obama won that election handily. Do you think there's a likelihood that a moderate could push aside Bernie Sanders, like an Amy Klobuchar or Buttigieg later on?
I think there's certainly a lot of Democrats who are hoping that is the case right now. But right now, I don't see it. I mean, there's a lot of momentum for Bernie Sanders. And look at what happened in the stock market these last couple of days. I think this is very telling. The notion that Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party didn't tank the market. It didn't create a lot of hesitancy for the stock market. Instead, stocks are up. That's because most Wall Street observers when they see Bernie Sanders as the nominee for the Democrats, they see a Trump second term. They think he's going to be a shoo-in. I think that the progressive part of the party is really going to have to come to terms with what's happening there, and Bernie Sanders right now has the momentum.
Mattie Duppler, great to see you. Come back soon.
Guys.
Just to